Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a big show lined up for you. Let's get right on into it. All right, I'm coming at you a little bit late today. Got stuck at work this morning. Had to do a bunch of stuff, and it is what it is.
Drink it up, people! All right, drink it up, gambler.
Weekends can be a little rough sometimes. But what we're going to talk about today, John Calipari, it looks like he's on the hot seat, and he's calling out the fans. So it's getting a little bit ugly up in Kentucky. And then Missouri got a huge NIL donation. I mean, a big one. So let's start out with Kentucky. Now, they've had a bad go of it in the last couple of weeks. Now, before we get started, before I start talking about basketball, my team, the Vols, had a rough night last night at Texas A&M. They just beat the crap out of us. They bullied us, everything. I'm not going to speak on it too much because I don't want y'all to hear that kind of language.
You don't need to hear things like that. You just a boy. You need to think about good thoughts while you still a boy.
But needless to say, we didn't show up in that game at all, and we got beat by 16 points, and it felt like it could have been 30. That's the worst game we played all year, so it's hard for me to sit here and get on Kentucky, but I'm going to do it anyway.
But of course.
This is on the Kentucky Wildcats website. Andrew Graham. It talks about Kentucky lost 3 straight games at Rupp Arena for the first time ever. So it's been nearly 50 years since Kentucky lost 3 straight home games. I don't think they've ever done it at Rupp. They lost to Gonzaga, which normally Gonzaga is a pretty good team, but they're not as good this year. And their first loss was to Florida, 94-91, which is not a terrible loss. Then Tennessee came up and scored over 100 points on them, which shocked everybody. And then they went on the road and beat up on a kind of hapless Vanderbilt team. But they came back to their friendly confines of Rupp and lost to Gonzaga. Now, I want to explain a couple of things about Kentucky basketball. A lot of teams, that wouldn't be the end of the world. It's like, okay, we've got a bad stretch. We've lost 3 games at home. You know, let's get this figured out. But for Kentucky, that is a nightmare, an absolute nightmare. And they take their basketball unbelievably serious. It's as serious to them as football is at Tennessee or Georgia or Alabama. Now, those fan bases care about basketball too, but not anywhere near to the level that they do football. Well, Kentucky basketball is their football. And they do care about football, but not like they do that round ball. And we'll talk a little bit about Kentucky football here in a minute. And when it comes to Kentucky basketball, you know I've got to show Kentucky Sports Radio.
Hello, YouTube. I need a drink. My name's Drew Franklin, Jack Pilgrim, Zach Gagan, Jacob Polachek, and Kentucky basketball just lost another game behind us. That's 3 in Rupp Arena in a row for the first time in the near 50-year history of Rupp Arena. As you can imagine, not a great mood here on this panel or anywhere around us, but the Rapid Reaction Show continues after Kentucky lost. I don't even know the score, don't care. It was a close game. Kentucky lost 3 straight games. Came down to the end, and in just a little poetic twist of the knife, Mark Few fouls up 3. Kentucky gets a look at the end. We'll get to that. I guess you can call that a look. But again, they lost, and we're here to review it, recap it, and do a little therapy with you. Jack Pilgrim.
Yeah, as you can see, they're not taking it well at all. This has been a recurring theme for them. And that's pretty much where I go if I want to see what's going on YouTube is Kentucky Sports Radio. They do a good job. But Calipari says frustrated fans should go after him and leave Kentucky players alone. He says, you know you're going to have some negative Nellies out there attacking, and that's fine. I told them the other day, I hope they just attack me and leave you guys alone, I guess the players.
Come after me! I'm a man! I'm 40!
Don't worry, John. They'll do exactly that. They want you gone. There's a ton of people up in Kentucky that have, you know, that's the thing about being a head coach. When you're at a place for a really long time, especially a place that has super high expectations, and you don't meet it for 3 or 4 years, they're ready to let you go when that happens. Now, I've seen this occur in the past with John Calipari, and normally what it is, he's got a ton of these 4- and 5-star guys, and really, he normally has the best players in the country, but they're freshmen. And it takes them a long time to kind of get acclimated to college basketball and to work as a team. So typically they'll have a bad stretch in the middle of the season or the beginning, and then towards the end they start kind of bringing it together as they approach March, which is normally a good thing. But they haven't pulled it together quite so well in the last several years. And so at Kentucky, you know, just because you make the tournament, that doesn't mean squat to them. Okay. They expect that. That's like winning 6 games and going to a bowl game. For a lot of these football programs, they just expect that. You're going to the dance. But they expect you to, at the very worst, make it to the second weekend. Getting knocked out in the first weekend drives them nuts, and that's been happening a lot for Kentucky. So this is a stretch, and there's no guarantee that they're going to make it to the tournament this year. They're kind of struggling. Let's take a look at their record. All right, they're 16-7. They're 5th in the SEC, and you can see what they've got left. They've got Ole Miss. That's a 9 o'clock game Tuesday. You would expect them to win that ball game, but that's no guarantee. That's at Rupp. That would be a 4th loss in a row. If they lost that one, surely they won't lose that one. Then they got to go to the Jungle, which is Auburn, at 6 o'clock on a Saturday. That's going to be a brutal environment. Look at the tickets. It says as low as $512. Now, Auburn has a very small gym, and it gets chaotic in there. It's very hard to win there. Okay, then they've got to go to LSU, and LSU is an okay team this year. They're not great. And then they've got to play Alabama. That's at home, though. So the next 4 games, it's possible they go 2-2 on that, which they're 16-7 now. That'd make them 18-9. Yeah, it's getting tough. Then they've got Arkansas. That should be at Rupp, and that'd be fine. Vandy, that should be an easy win. And then they've got Tennessee at Thompson Bowling. So I think they'll sneak in and get to 20 wins pretty easily. That's not the way you want to go into the tournament, because that means you're going to end up having to upset 2 teams just to get to the second weekend, because they'll probably end up getting ranked like 9, 10, 11, or 12, somewhere in that neighborhood, and you don't want to be ranked that because, like I said, it's a very difficult road to hoe. Row to hoe. Is it row to hoe or road to hoe? I don't know. Row to hoe, I think. That's the only thing that makes sense, because you got a hoe, you got a farm, and you have a row. It's not a road. Anyway, I'll cut most of that out.
Just kidding.
So anyway, they've got a bit of a tough stretch there, and we'll see how it plays out. But John Calipari, this might be his last year, and I don't think he's even under contract anymore. I think he's going year by year. Let me check that. All right, now here's Calipari's contract. He's actually through 2029, it says. He signed a 10-year deal back in 19. So he's still got several years left. But what does that really mean? It says for each contract year during the term, a base salary of $400,000 payable in equal monthly installments in conformity with the payroll procedures. Well, I know he's not making that. He's making like 9. Here we go. Okay, here's your amounts. 7.6, 8.1, 8.1, and then it goes up to 8.6 the last 4 years. So he would be going into an 8.1 next year. Okay, here it explains it. It says if the university lets him go without cause, just terminates him, they got to give him a 30-day prior effective date termination notice. The coach would agree to accept as liquidation damages 75% of the remaining compensation payable to coach under sections blah, blah, blah. So he's still under a pretty good contract for the next 5 years. So, unless he decides he just wants to leave. I thought he was on some sort of a year-by-year thing by this point, but obviously he's not. So they would owe him a great deal of money. Let's see, 5 times that's 40. They'd owe him about $30 million, which Texas A&M would take that deal like that. They're like, gee, how'd you get off so easy? But Calipari is a good coach, and he recruits like crazy. I've never seen anybody recruit like him. So, they'll probably make the tournament and do okay, and this will kind of flush down the drain, and he'll be all right. But, if for some reason they don't make the dance or something like that, that would be a major problem, and then we'll see what happens then. And Calipari might get tired of it at some point. He may just decide to, heck, I'll negotiate a settlement and just get out of here. I could see that happening with him. I don't think he's hurting for money by any stretch. Now let's talk about Kentucky's football coaching situation. Their offensive coordinator, Liam Cohen, who's a very good offensive coordinator, he got hired in the NFL. Like a lot of these offensive coordinators, they're looking to get the heck out of college football. They don't want any more part of this. The NIL, the transfer portal, the recruiting, the 2 different dates, it's kind of miserable. The only positive of it is they do like to coach. They love to coach. And they get paid really well.
Woo! 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 Ow! Love that money.
Really well. Well, you can do that in the NFL, and you don't have to deal with all the crap. So all the best coordinators are hightailing it. They're getting the crap out of Dodge. And the problem with Liam Cohen is one of the reasons Brock VanderGriff came to Kentucky was because of Liam Cohen. So if they don't have an offensive coordinator that Brock VanderGriff is happy with, will he leave? Now, he says he's not going to leave, but Liam Cohen said he was the offensive coordinator for Kentucky too. And so did the Grubb guy for Alabama. Where are they now? So, you know, words are words. This is college football. Words don't mean a whole lot anymore. It's unfortunate, but it's true. Somebody throws a bunch of money at you, they're gone. Now, speaking of a bunch of money, Missouri just got a bunch of money. And this is on the St. Louis Dispatch. It says Missouri Athletics receives record $62 million donation. Yeah, $62
million.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. Now, let's see how it's broken down. It said it was record-breaking. The gift provided by an anonymous donor is more than double the previous largest contribution to Missouri's athletics. The donor earmarked $50 million for MU's planned renovation of their stadium, another $12 million for the school's Tiger Fund, which directly benefits athletes. It's worth more than the last 2 years of Missouri's donations were $57 million. It was more than that combined. So why that's important, $12 million towards the NIL. Realize that Ohio State, I believe, is spending $13 million this year on keeping players and bringing players in, transfer portal, et cetera. So that's about the going rate. You need about $12 million a year to run a competitive program in the NCAA this year in the top 20. So this is a one-time donation, but they may split that up over several years. You never know how it's going to play out, but it's going to help them a lot. And they have a special rule there, and a special law actually, where they can start paying high school players in high school as long as they stay in Missouri and go to a state school. So a high school, let's say they got a 5-star guy like they had Winery. They can go ahead and start paying him his senior year in high school and keep him in Missouri, whereas a lot of other teams can't do that. So it gives them an advantage and it helps them keep their best players, which I completely understand. I don't blame them for doing that. So this should really help Missouri, and they become a very competitive team. And this kind of flies in the face of a lot of people thinking that money wouldn't provide parity. Well, we're definitely seeing parity in college football right now because a team like Missouri can now compete. Whereas before it was just Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, you know, just the typical teams that are always in the Final Four or the playoff. Of course, now we got a 12-team playoff. And on top of that, look, a lot of these schools, as long as they can put the money together, they're going to be able to get those 4 and 5 stars that all went to 2 or 3 schools. So you're getting parity. And Missouri won 11 games last year, that's terrific. They got a really good quarterback there, Brady Cook, who's back this year. And that wide receiver they got's fantastic. Luther, I can't remember his last name, but he's a great player. So I think even though the NIL frustrates a lot of people, it's going to bring parity and competition, and that's great for the sport, though. Now, Missouri's going to be all fired up. Their fans are excited. And when you start getting the other teams excited, it makes for a better product out on the field, especially in college football. It's not fair when only 2 or 3 teams win everything. It's like baseball. You know, think how many teams in baseball, Major League Baseball, are completely non-competitive. It's because it's the haves and the have-nots. Well, now the have-nots can get in on the game in college football, and it's starting to do this. Especially with a 12-team playoff, it's going to get pretty fascinating, really. I can't wait for next year. I think that playoff's going to be amazing. The viewership will be through the roof. I'll watch every game. I don't watch every bowl game, but I'll watch every one of those games. And if you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Lets me know to continue to cover all these big news stories. And if you've not subscribed, it's on your right, my left. Just hit this little button. I'd appreciate it. And right over here's the most recent video. YouTube thinks you'll enjoy. And we'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay.